Welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe That? I'm the Car Wizard from YouTube fame. You know me from Who's Garage as well. And then we have a paranormal guru, Thomas Durant.
Where? Me? Guru?
You! Yes.
I guess I'll own it. We've been doing this for a little while now, right?
Yeah, if I had any questions about those topics, you would be the guy I go to, so I would say so.
Well, if I have any questions about cars, I always go to you first because you are super knowledgeable and your channel is awesome, Wizard. I love what you and Jenny do over there and the fact that I can learn anything about any car just by going over to the Car Wizard channel.
We enjoy doing it. So today's topic, what we're going to talk about is giants. We've all heard the biblical story of David and Goliath, but how there was giants in the past and multiple different cultures validate this. I'm going to share with you guys today some standpoints from a biblical point of view, actually some Bible verses that actually show at some point in the past that these things were real from a biblical standpoint. And I'll be interested, Tommy, to hear from you some other different cultures or different ideas. But I'll start off with some Bible verses. Are you ready, Tommy?
I am ready. I am so ready to hear about giants because this was a great rabbit hole to go down. And I am looking forward to hearing what you came up with. And I know you're going to be interested in what I found.
Awesome. Well, it comes from 3 different books in the Bible. I got 4 or 5 verses here I'm going to share. One of them being actually the very first book in the Bible, Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. It says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which are of old, men of renown." So there, in just in that one verse, it says literally, there were giants in those days. They're not mincing words here.
No, and is that like that sounds like the origin story for the Nephilim.
Yeah, this is kind of where that's coming from. The Bible doesn't go into very serious details about their appearance or all the, how everything worked. It does mention that this did happen, though.
Well, I know that there's a lot of biblical researchers that talk about the Nephilim, and you're right, it was angels coming from on high, and originally they were just trying to teach humanity things like healing or magic, and what it turned into was them falling in love with our women. And I mean, I love our women too. Sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that on camera. My poor wife is always watching these. I love you, honey. Anyway, so the Nephilim, they came and they procreated with humans. And from what these biblical scholars and other researchers have determined is that that was how these Nephilim were birthed. And they were giants and they were monsters. And part of the idea of the great deluge was to sweep these off of the land and to make them eradicated. And so It's kind of interesting. And we'll get to this when I talk a little bit later about other cultures. But this idea of the catastrophic floods or catastrophic fires coming and wiping out the giants, it's consistent in several cultures across the world.
One of the last verses here I'll share in a minute is consistent with that as well. But in the book of Numbers, it's actually chapter 13, verse 33, it says, "And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in their sight grasshoppers, so we were there in their sight." The saying that we were small in comparison, like a grasshopper, to their height and their stature. And again, it says there were giants.
Terrifying. Imagine standing there and you see a giant in front of you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wish the Bible had went into more detail, like where these things were found, how many of them were there an entire race of them? I don't know.
Yeah.
In Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 11, it says, "Which are also accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites call them Imims." But they have these strange names. I don't understand the names, but there was obviously some race of being. They actually had names for them. And according to, they described here a little bit ago, we were the size of grasshoppers compared to them. They were massive.
Yeah.
And then I have one more I'll share with you, Tommy, so we get off this Bible kick that we're on. So I know some people
let's never get off the Bible kick. Our viewers love it, and you love it. And you know what? it's okay by me.
Okay, sounds good. But this kind of corroborates with what you said, where there was a deluge that wiped these things off the face of the earth. And that would definitely line up with this last verse, is Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 21. It says, "A people great and many and tall as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead." Maybe he saw them as abominations, or he was like, well, this is not what I had in mind. This doesn't need to be here. That's about all you can find in the Bible about them. So, I mean, you can take that for what it is, but let's definitely talk about it in the comments. What do you guys think? Let's kind of work together, kind of brainstorm.
You know, you kept saying the word Anukai, I think it was.
Anakim, it's Anakim.
So
Anakim,
Anakim, I mean, it's a close resemblance to Anunnaki or Anunnaki, which were these old Sumerian gods that were seen as giants, by the way. So is it
yeah.
some sort of relation there? Like, please, comments, talk about it. Well, I want to hear your thoughts too, because maybe the Anunnaki were somehow involved in these biblical scriptures, and because they were real, because they were part of this race of giants. Like, we don't know, but super fascinating, Wizard.
One thing, just like with Bigfoot, we've talked about Bigfoot. When you can find a similar incidence with details that match across multiple religions, multiple cultures, they must have been real.
Yeah, I tend to believe that. It's not like someone's going to make up a story and then magically somewhere across the globe another story gets made up that's exactly the same. And that's what we're seeing. Like the Abrahamic faiths have these things, including Islam. Islam talks about giants. You have giants in Norse mythology, the frost giants. You even have giants in America, from the Aztecs to the Native Americans having stories of red and black haired giants. So they're
Wow.
all over the place. And it's crazy because it's not just in the far history, it's in more modern history. Magellan, great explorer, right? I mean, probably a bit of a
Hmm.
jerk, let's be honest, because most of the time these people would come from Europe and then enslave or attack local tribes. So Jerk comes over. He found a race of giants when he came to the New World, and he was thinking, hey, you know what? This is a great sideshow. I got to bring this back to Europe. So what did he do?
Hmm.
He tricked two of them and then ensnared them in chains. His crew dragged them onto a boat and abducted them. And then, as they're on their way back to the old world, these two giants die on the boat, which happens. Like these long sea voyages were not easy and they were not safe, and it didn't end well for them. But Magellan did get his just desserts and was taken out by a poison arrow. So, yay.
Here's kind of an idea I had. It's just something just to run past you. And I've seen Facebook clips about this. Like you see pyramids in the background behind me. They've always had these ideas of ramps and things that they used to build them, or different ways that they got the blocks up. If these were built during the times when these giants that multiple cultures and religions talk about, is it possible that they just physically lifted them with their own hands and put them up there?
Yeah, well, there's stories from, again, some of the Native Americans in the New World that were talking about how these beastly creatures would just lift giant rocks. And in fact, in Aztec traditions, so as the Aztecs were being attacked by the Spaniards had found another tribe in that area that hated the Aztecs as much as them. So they kept going after the Aztecs and trying to take them out. And one of the stories that, again, progresses through history is that the Aztecs had these giants on their side and they would lift
Mm-hmm.
blocks meant for building. So think pyramids, think the Aztec pyramids, and they were hurling these at the Spaniards, killing them. So this is a
Wow.
recorded piece of history that was written down, and it to this day, like we now have that as written record. Now, whether people believe it or not, that's a whole nother story.
Well, how do you estimate possibly how tall they were? Maybe 20 feet tall, 15 feet tall, 30, 40? I don't know.
Yeah, it just depends. Like the Rio Grande River was actually named Palms originally, the Palms River, not palm trees, but the unit of measurement. And why did they call it that? Because early explorers there claimed to have run into giants that were so many palms tall. And it's a weird unit of measurement. I can't imagine everybody's hands are the same, but that's what they did. And that's why it's called Rio Grande now, because again, having to do with these gigantes, giants, that were in the region. So
Hmm.
it's so infiltrated in our history, and it's just amazing that there isn't more attention paid to it because yeah, Goliath actually may have been a giant. And how do we know this? Well, we found bones. Now, not bones of a giant. Like most of the stuff you see on the internet isn't real or it's, skewed to make it look bigger. But there have been bones found of this race of being called Denisovans. Denisovans were giant people and they have massive jawbones. Their teeth were like 3 times or 2 times the size of our teeth. And so if the jaws are big, because that's as much as we've seen as
Wow.
fingers and jaws, then the rest of them pretty massive. Now, there's one case where we have a bone where it's a Denisovan hybrid with a Neanderthal. And yes, that person
Mm.
was a 13-year-old child when they died, and we were able to recover some of it and do some DNA testing to it. But if they had actually mated with Homo sapiens as well, you might have these people. And the other part with the Denisovans that's super interesting is there's a lot of evidence that they had tools, that they were able to make drilling devices and other things way before we did. So these Denisovans could very
Right.
well be these giants that we're talking about, and they may have been very smart, but because of the Younger Dryas or this massive cataclysmic event, they may have gone extinct from that because they just didn't have the numbers and they were larger. And obviously, as we know, a lot of our larger megafauna,
Hmm.
the big woolly mammoths, and all of these other things also died for the most part during this Younger Dryas. It was a mass extinction event. So maybe they were just too big to stay around, but small pockets of them, kind of like Bigfoot, may have survived. And that's where these stories come from because those that could adapt and survive did in small populations and integrated to some degree in humanity. We even have cases of Native American tribes that had these giants as their chiefs and as their sort of like friends. And we have cases with the Paiute Native Americans, Paiute, I'm sorry, correct me in the comments. How do I pronounce this correctly? But the Paiute Native Americans actually fought red and black haired giants, or I guess it was the red haired giants, from what I was told. But essentially, these giants were coming and cannibalizing some of their tribespeople. And so they banded together and went and attacked them and locked them into a cave, shut the cave off, and lit the entrance on fire and smoked them to death. So I know that's horrible and it's gruesome and it's awful,
Wow.
but this is one of their stories. And I was fortunate enough when I was doing a pilot for a Discovery Channel show, I got to go out to an area of Nevada that was known to have these giants and to hear the legend firsthand from people that knew of it passed down to them and to be in that same region where these humans in this early age of humanity were able to fight off these giants who were eating them. It's like pretty hair raising and it's super, super fascinating.
There's definitely something to it. It's interesting to hear all that from the stories that you're telling, especially the Native Americans and some of these other stories you're telling where they had to fight them.
Yeah.
But can you imagine fighting something twice your size or 3 times your size, or
I have to wear my yellow and brown pants. That would be
just
it.
step on you?
Yeah. Yeah. There's not much of a chance. I mean, they're talking about most of these giants in the Americas were really around the 9 to 10 foot tall side of things. They weren't,
Yeah.
30, 40 foot. But I mean, regardless, like if I went up to somebody and they're 8 feet, 9 feet tall, all muscle, I mean, I'm going to look like a shrimp to them. And yeah, maybe I make
Yeah.
an appetizer.
Well, I want to kind of talk about the logistics. I have 3 questions that maybe you can answer, or you guys out there watching can, in the comments, let us know what you think about them, about this whole idea of giants. And the first one would be like, if they were truly 20, 30 feet tall, these massive humans, I don't know if you would call them humans, I don't know what they would have been, maybe Denisovans, but in a biblical account, these angels came down and took wives and had children with human females. The logistics of that, the baby that would have come out.
I realized where you were going right
How,
as you were about to
yeah,
ask.
it'd have to be a normal human-sized baby. How does it get to be 30 feet tall?
One would hope it was a normal human-sized baby, but the
I
logistics of
hope
the whole
so.
process are bad.
Oh man.
I
And
don't know if I
the
want to answer that because I don't even know if I want to picture it.
I don't get the logistics of that. I have another question, though. If you have these 20 or 30-foot tall beings, they're not going to be satisfied as far as food with deer that fit in the palm of their hand. They're going to need substantial food, substance, and a woolly mammoth would fit the bill, or something of that size anyway. And it's funny how when they died off, so did the others.
Yeah, I mean, there could very well, aside from the Younger Dryas event, which, just for people who don't know, Younger Dryas is an event known to history, very legitimate, of a massive extinction event, likely caused by a comet or asteroid hitting the planet, but it's still unclear exactly what went down. It left a layer of black sediment, and we know that almost all of these fossils happen below that sediment layer. Yeah, maybe they were killed off by the event. Maybe they were killed off by an after effect, like the sun getting blocked out and killing a lot of the local vegetations, or oceans rising because of the heat and causing a lot of the glaciers to melt. Or maybe they died due to the direct impact. We don't know, and that's kind of the problem. It's hard enough to get people to want to believe that they even existed, but the fact that we just don't exactly know what happened to them. But I think, like you, it's, yeah, if you lose your primary food sources, it's going to be hard. Even if you resort to cannibalism, like the Paiute Native Americans said about their giants. So, that was probably a way that some of them survived, as horrible as it is, very Donner Party. But, there's some people that just have that will to survive and will do anything. And I think, that goes across the board for a lot of different animals. I mean, we've seen people, and it's unfortunate, people use like foot traps to catch animals, bear, coyotes, and sometimes the animals will, in fact, gnaw their own limb off just to get away. So
Yeah,
you,
I've
you
heard of
can't
that.
fight the survival instinct. So who knows
No.
what happened? But obviously, some of them did survive because we have firsthand accounts right up until the 1700s.
That leads me to the last question I want to postulate with you and you guys out there watching. You can post what you think about it, some ideas or some questions you might have that we could answer at a future episode. But these things existed. Why haven't we found a full skeleton? It seems like they would have excavated a 30-foot tall giant at some point by now.
Yes and no. I mean, there are accounts that skeletons have been removed from the earth that were abnormally large. They were sent to places like, there's a big story about the Smithsonian Institute in America having received skeletons of giants, and then they just disappeared. And a lot of people believe there's a big, let's get the tinfoil hats on here, guys. There's a big conspiracy that says, no, these giants, they existed, but we're not going to let the people know that they existed. I don't necessarily buy into all that. I don't know why the Smithsonian would hide just the fact that there was big people, especially now that they have the out to say, oh, they were just Denisovans. It's fine. They're not doing that. So
Nothing to see here.
yeah, nothing to see here. Do we know what their burial practices were though? No, we don't. And so
No.
is it possible, just like the Vikings of old, did they just light their people on fire and burn them to ash? Well, you're not going to find a whole lot of remnants depending on how hot the fire burns. So maybe that was their way, and maybe it's just a few and far between of them that survived to become fossils. But you're right, we probably should have seen something by now in the fossil record. It's hard to say.
And however any culture or religion would look at how these large beings were destroyed, whether through a deluge or a comet or something, maybe the Younger Dryas was a point where, from a biblical standpoint, God sent an asteroid. It would be devastating enough to take out the large creatures,
Yeah,
but there would be just enough food for the smaller ones to survive it and get through and continue on with life.
exactly.
Maybe there was something along those lines. But you do see in multiple cultures and religions where these things existed, and for whatever reason or another, they were purposely removed.
If you asked me at the end of the day if I believed that giants existed, I would say there's enough firsthand accounts that I think at least beings, physical beings that were 7, 8, 9 feet tall likely did exist, just from the firsthand accounts. That's my take
Yes.
on it, but I don't know. What's yours, Wizard?
Well, from a biblical standpoint, I have to take the Bible for its truth and say, if I believe in that, I have to believe in all of it. You can't piecemeal And that being the case, I would have to say, biblically, they absolutely did exist.
So there you have it, everybody. We believe in giants. Now you've heard us say everything. So for the people that go into our comments and like to tell us that we've lost our minds and we're crazy, here's one more to add to it. So go ahead, comment below. It helps us in the algorithms.
And we could go on for hours and hours, Tommy, thinking, so these things existed. What were the consequences? What kind of changes did we see in the earth? What did this happen? How did they do that? You could go on for hours and hours. And I don't want to go into their mating practices with a 30-foot being. I don't. That's like a earthquake, a 3.0 earthquake.
I You still have me boggled by the fact of thinking these giants and normal humans trying to make that work, and it's like I'm gonna have nightmares now. Thank you.
Yeah.
But, do you want to get to some listener questions and viewer questions from the interwebs?
Let's do that. Yes.
So let's start with this one from Quattro UK 2011. Was the 2011 Quattro a good car, Wizard?
I don't think any Quattro was any good.
So you're saying Audis are just not the way to go.
They are not the way to go. No. Not if you want to keep money in your bank account.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, so that sounds like a good plan. Anyway, Quattro UK 2011 asks us, is it one entity or are there multiple Bigfoots around the world? So obviously about Bigfoots. What are your thoughts on some people claiming to see UFOs or orbs around Bigfoots? So let's start with the first one. Is it one entity or are there multiple Bigfoots around the world? Wizard, what's your take?
I guess maybe if this entity was just by itself and it could teleport or travel really fast, but many cultures have seen or talked about a Bigfoot through the eons of time of human history. I fail to believe that it's just one going around doing this for thousands of years. I think there's more than one, possibly at one time, or maybe there are multiple families of them. So yeah, I think there's more than one.
Well, and who's to say that these aren't the giants we're talking about in this episode either, right? Like Bigfoots
It could
are
be.
8, 9 feet tall. They're pretty massive. My take on it is just like Wizards. I don't think it's a single entity, and I don't think it's just one type of entity. I think there's a difference in skin color, in their coat, in their manes, in their behavior from region to region. So, in my mind, Bigfoot is a type of physical creature that exists and has adapted over time to its environment where it's at. So that would be my take on it. Now, the second part of your question, the UFOs and the orbs. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. So the reason I'm laughing about the question about UFOs and orbs around Bigfoot, a lot of people do believe in that. You'll see in our merch store, we have a T-shirt that says Bigfoot lives in tunnels built by aliens. Why do we
Yes.
have that in our store? It was not this question. Sorry, Quattro. I don't want to take away from you, but the reason that ended up is when I did the Unsealed Alien Files and Unsealed Conspiracy Files show, they posed this question to me, and I thought the idea was ridiculous. And so when they posed it, that did Bigfoot live in tunnels built by aliens? It was the only question I got asked that I would not answer. And in fact, my response to the producer was, I am not going to use any of those words in a sentence ever, period. And that was the end of that. We moved on. But now we put it on a t-shirt. So do I believe in it? There are a lot of sightings that people have of orbs or UFOs around Bigfoot sightings or within vicinity of these Bigfoot sightings. So, I mean, I don't want to discredit what people are witnessing, but I don't necessarily believe they're connected. Wizard, what's your take?
I believe that Bigfoot is included in the family of creatures on Earth. I don't think it's a UFO or from another planet. It's possible it could be spiritual. That's another avenue, paranormal as far as spiritual, demonic, or something. Some people believe that it's just demons giving themselves the attributes of a Bigfoot and misleading people or whatever. But I believe it probably was a creature, like an earthbound, earthborn creature.
Yeah, and if you believe it's demonic, then you probably believe UFOs are demonic and ghosts are demonic. So then it would
Yeah.
all fit that bill for you. So maybe that's the connection for people that believe that. I just personally haven't had enough credible stories come to me that explain like, oh, I saw a Bigfoot and then there was a UFO. Not to say they're not out there, but that's just our take. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. Let us know what you think.
Yes, let us know in the comments. Also, if you have more questions, just like we're doing here, put the questions in the comments and we can answer them for you as we get time.
Absolutely. And so we have one more question for today, and that's from Surfin' Surfer, SRFN Surfer. Could be Senior Fun Surfer, but I'm pretty sure it's Surfin' Surfer. Let me know if I messed it up. Thank you. And they ask, are there any books about cryptids that either of you have enjoyed?
I have never read any books on cryptids. I do, if I do any reading, it's online. I do research that way, but I haven't really picked up a full-blown book about them. How about you, Tommy?
Well, Wizard, for me, I don't think you can go wrong with anything by Lauren Coleman, who's a cryptozoologist who's been involved in this field for a long time. And anything by Linda Godfrey is also pretty good. She really spent a lot of time researching. Unfortunately, she passed away not too long ago, but she really gets deep and thorough into everything she looks into. So I find her to be very credible because she takes eyewitness accounts and she just lays them out as they are. And she'll definitely add her take to some degree at the end about what she thinks, but you have all the information of the case study right there at your disposal. And Lauren obviously is a Bigfoot expert. He's been doing this forever and he's fantastic. So I think you can't go wrong with either two of them in any of the books that they write. But you know, the folks at BRFBFRO, Bigfoot Research Organization, I think. Oh boy, they're gonna hate me. BFRO and also like their team. I've gotten to interview a couple of members of their team on another podcast I did years ago, and they are fantastic. Like if you want to investigate Bigfoot, they're the place to talk to because they've been doing it. They've set up this national network, and they actually have handy dandy apps that you can get a hold of that tell you about recent Bigfoot sightings. So if you're like, hey, one was just sighted here, maybe you're going camping that weekend with your friend, but do please bring protection because we don't necessarily know if Bigfoot's safe or friendly, and there may also be bear, which are definitely not safe and friendly.
Thinking of protection, I would hate to think about the protection that they used back then for giants.
I know. Well, apparently they just burned them. Terrifying. What a way to go. Like getting smoked out in a cave. I mean, look, it was terrorizing the tribe. I totally understand. But when you're in that like space in Nevada and you're looking at all of these vast canyons and giant rock formations and all these epic caves, yeah, it kind of would be a cool place for a giant to live because you can get out of the sun and then you can go out and do your thing. And there's enough animals where you could feed off of. Like, especially in this place we were at, there were wild mule there. And I'm like, I'd never seen wild mule before. I thought those were just animals that we sort of domesticated and that was it. But no, they're out there in the wild. So, you know, there's a lot for them to choose from out there. And then probably the occasional unsuspecting person.
Interesting. Well, there you have it, guys. We've discussed between the two of us our beliefs and our experiences and the things that we understand about giants and how me and Tommy both believe they did, in fact, exist. But let us know in the comments what your take is on it. What do you think about it? And again, if you got questions, let us know about that. But we have many more episodes to go. We have tons of topics we got to cover. You definitely want to hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up with what we got going on here. And I'll have our two different views and of the things we've experienced, our beliefs, and we'll talk with you guys about it. We can all discuss together without arguing, without fighting. How did this stuff come to be, and what are the beliefs in various different areas?
Yeah, and it's great because you know you can have two different viewpoints and come from two different religions and still get along and not hate each other. So we want to share that with you, and we hope that you all keep continuing to have great conversations in your lives and in our comment section and share your stories because oh my god, we love hearing the stories. And
Yes.
speaking of stories, in our next episode, we are going to be telling some of our own personal paranormal stories. So turn the lights down low, put on some creepy ambience, and maybe get yourself a cocktail, or if you're family friendly, a nice cup of warm tea, and get ready for that. So that is coming up to you in another 2 weeks. And thank you all for watching. And I'm going to do weird things with my hands at the end because that's what I do.
Hit the subscribe button, guys. Thanks for watching.
I don't know why I do this. It's inadvertent. Can't
It's a
avoid it.
weird way of waving.
Like a T-Rex.